Hello, everyone. Let's have a radical dive into the work of Errico Malatesta. Keep it radical, keep it revolutionary.
Sounds good to me.
Ready to explore the life and ideas of this firebrand anarchist who challenged the very foundations of society.
Absolutely. Malatesta's life and work are a whirlwind of revolutionary thought and action.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We see Malatesta was born in Santa Maria, Capua Vetere, Italy in 1853. Imagine growing up in a place and time where political upheaval and social inequalities were just like the norm.
Yeah, it's no wonder he became such a staunch advocate for, radical change. Those early experiences in his hometown must have just profoundly shaped his worldview.
Right. It makes you think about how our own environments influence our beliefs. We see he was initially drawn to republicanism, but, became disillusioned with its limitations.
Yeah, he quickly realized that simply changing the figurehead at the top wouldn't dismantle the systems of oppression that kept the masses down. It's a realization many revolutionaries come to, that true liberation demands a more fundamental shift.
So he embraced anarchism as the answer to the poverty and oppression he saw all around him.
Exactly. For Malatesta, anarchism wasn't just a philosophy, it was a way of life. He dedicated his life to anarchist activism, organizing, writing, and even participating in uprisings. This, of course, led to frequent exile and imprisonment.
A true revolutionary nomad, constantly challenging the powers that be. What I find particularly fascinating is that Malatesta wasn't just an intellectual, he was a man of the people. He worked as a gas fitter and electrician, rejecting the elitism of many intellectuals who were detached from the struggles of the working class.
It speaks to his commitment to, living his ideals. And it wasn't just symbolic. He believed that engaging in manual labor kept him grounded in the realities of the people he sought to liberate.
It's pretty amazing that even the Italian authorities who imprisoned him express admiration for Malatesta's character. They may have disagreed with his ideas, but they couldn't deny his integrity.
It's a testament to his unwavering principles and the respect he commanded, even from those who opposed him. Now let's dive into the heart of Malatesta's ideas.
Okay, so let's get into his theoretical framework. What were the core principles that drove his revolutionary vision?
At the core of Malatesta's beliefs was anarchist communism. He envisioned a world where private property and the state were abolished.
So not just tweaking the system, but a complete overhaul. What would that society look like in practice?
He believed in the collective ownership of the means of production and distribution. Individuals would contribute according to their abilities and receive according to their needs. It's a vision of a society where cooperation and mutual aid replace competition and exploitation as the driving forces.
A radical departure from the individualistic ethos of capitalism.
Absolutely. And it's important to note that he wasn't advocating for a rigid, centrally planned economy. He recognized the need for organization, but he believed that it should be decentralized and based on voluntary cooperation.
He even distinguished between administration and domination, arguing that while the organization of work is necessary, the imposition of government is not. It's a subtle but crucial distinction for understanding his thought.
It gets at the heart of his critique of authority. Later in his life, we see he preferred the term socialist anarchist because the negative connotations communism had acquired due to the authoritarian regimes that claimed that label.
That's interesting. It shows how language and perception can shape political discourse. So was anarchist communism or socialist anarchism the only pillar of his thought?
Not at all. Malatesta's ideas were rich and multifaceted. He believed solidarity was paramount, arguing that true individual freedom can only exist within a framework of social responsibility.
It's that idea that we're all interconnected, that our liberation is bound up with one another's. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a powerful concept, and it's reflected in his views on violence. He rejected violence as a primary means of social change, advocating for education and persuasion as the tools for fostering revolutionary consciousness. He believed in the inherent goodness of humanity and saw violence as a last resort only justified in self-defense against oppression.
So a revolution of ideas rather than a violent overthrow. Did he believe in working within the existing system at all?
Not really. Malatesta was a staunch critic of both reformism and parliamentarism. He saw them as bandages on a gaping wound, arguing that these approaches ultimately reinforce the very systems of power they aim to reform.
He believed that true revolution required a complete break from the existing order, not just tweaking around the edges. Did he have specific ideas about how this break should happen?
He advocated for direct action revolutionary organization and the creation of alternative institutions that would prefigure the future anarchist society. He saw the need for building the new world within the shell of the old, creating spaces where anarchist principles could be put into practice, demonstrating their viability and inspiring others to join the struggle.
So not waiting for some far-off revolution, but starting to build the world he envisioned right here and now.
Exactly. And despite his emphasis on collective action, he didn't neglect the importance of the individual. He emphasized individual autonomy and self-determination within a framework of social responsibility. He saw individual initiative and creativity as essential for social progress, and encouraged people to live in accordance with their ideals, challenging societal norms and oppressive structures.
It's that interplay between the individual and the collective that makes his thinking so compelling. It's not just about dismantling systems, but about empowering individuals within a framework of shared responsibility.
It's a delicate balance, but one that he believed was essential for any truly liberatory movement. And that's where his ideas about organization come in.
This is where it gets really interesting. It seems counterintuitive that someone who champions individual freedom would also be a strong advocate for organization.
It might seem like a contradiction, but Malatesta recognized that to challenge the deeply entrenched systems of power, they needed to be organized. He rejected the notion that anarchism was synonymous with chaos.
So what kind of organization did he envision?
He advocated for decentralized, non-hierarchical forms of organization based on voluntary association and direct democracy. It was about creating structures that reflected anarchist principles, empowering individuals while working towards a common goal. He was acutely aware of the dangers of bureaucracy and compromise, urging anarchists to stay true to their principles and resist the temptations of assimilation.
So a constant struggle to maintain the integrity of anarchist organizations, making sure they don't become the very things they're fighting against. That's a challenge for any movement seeking radical change.
Absolutely. And Malatesta didn't limit his vision to a single nation or region. He was a staunch anti-militarist and internationalist, condemning war as a tool of state oppression and advocating for international solidarity among workers.
He saw through the nationalist propaganda that fuels so much conflict. He understood that it's working people who pay the ultimate price for the ambitions of their rulers, and he truly believed in a world without borders, a future of global cooperation and peace, where humanity could reach its full potential.
It's a powerful and hopeful vision, and it all stems from his deep understanding of human nature. Malatesta recognized the inherent goodness and potential for cooperation within humanity. He believed that given the right conditions, people could live together in harmony without the need for rulers and masters.
That faith in humanity is really inspiring. It's a reminder that another world is possible and that we have the power to create it. So what stands out to you the most about Malatesta's life and ideas so far?
His unwavering commitment to both individual freedom and collective action. It's not an either proposition for him. He recognized that they are mutually reinforcing and that finding that balance is key to achieving lasting change.
Absolutely. He was a complex thinker who grappled with some of the most fundamental questions about power, freedom, and social organization. And his ideas continue to resonate today, offering valuable insights for anyone interested in building a more just and equitable world.
For sure. And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to uncover in his writings and actions. You know, it's fascinating how Malatesta saw solidarity as like the cornerstone of a truly free society. He argued that genuine individual freedom could only flourish within a framework of social solidarity.
It's like that African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Malatesta seems to have really understood that interconnectedness.
Absolutely. And this commitment to solidarity was also reflected in his views on violence. While acknowledging the necessity of self-defense against oppression, he ultimately rejected violence as the primary means of social change.
He believed in winning hearts and minds, not waging wars. We see he advocated for education and persuasion to cultivate a revolutionary consciousness among the masses.
He saw violence as a last resort, a necessary evil only in the face of overwhelming oppression. But he always stressed the importance of minimizing violence and seeking peaceful solutions whenever possible.
It's about creating a culture of nonviolence, while also recognizing that there are times when force might be necessary to defend ourselves and our communities. Now let's delve into some of Malatesta's specific writings. One that comes to mind is his pamphlet, Anarchy, a concise and powerful explanation of anarchist principles.
Anarchy is a brilliant distillation of his core beliefs. In it, he argues that government is not only unnecessary, but inherently harmful. He claims that governments, regardless of their form, ultimately serve to protect the interests of the ruling class at the expense of the masses.
It's a pretty bold statement. He saw governments as instruments of domination, tools for maintaining the status quo and suppressing dissent. He even challenged the idea of democratic systems, arguing they were just a more subtle form of tyranny.
Right. He pointed out that even in democracies, real power often resides with a small elite who manipulate the system for their own benefit. And Malatesta didn't stop there. He also challenged the traditional notion of law, arguing that it was nothing more than a tool for enforcing the will of the powerful.
He believed that in a truly free society, law would be replaced by voluntary agreements and a shared sense of justice. It's a pretty radical departure from the legal systems we're accustomed to.
It is. He envisioned moving beyond a system of punishment and retribution towards a more restorative approach, one that focuses on healing harm and addressing the root causes of conflict.
Now, one of the most common criticisms of anarchism is that it's unrealistic and would lead to chaos and disorder. How did Malatesta address this concern?
He tackled it head-on. He argued that true anarchy is not about the absence of organization, but rather about the creation of a new kind of order based on voluntary cooperation and mutual aid.
So it's not about everyone doing whatever they want, but about finding ways to cooperate and coexist without the need for coercive authority.
Exactly. He believed that human beings are naturally social creatures capable of self-governing without the need for a ruling class. And he pointed to historical examples of cooperation from indigenous communities to worker-run cooperatives as evidence that anarchy is not only possible but desirable.
Did he address the issue of crime and how a society without laws would handle it?
Yes, he argued that in a society without poverty and inequality, crime would be greatly reduced. He saw crime as a symptom of a sick society, not an inherent flaw in human nature. By addressing the root causes of crime, such as poverty and lack of opportunity, we could create a society where crime is the exception, not the rule.
So for Malatesta, anarchy isn't some utopian fantasy, but a practical and achievable goal that requires a fundamental shift in how we think about power, authority, and human nature. Let's move on to his views on revolution. He was a staunch advocate for revolution, but what did that mean to him?
For Malatesta, revolution wasn't simply about seizing state power. It was about fundamentally transforming society from the bottom up.
A true grassroots revolution, not a coup by a small group of elites.
Exactly. He believed that true revolution required the active participation of the masses. He saw it as a process of social transformation, a gradual but determined dismantling of the existing order and the creation of a new one based on anarchist principles.
He seems to be drawing a clear distinction between revolution and simply replacing one set of rulers with another. Did he believe in the idea of a vanguard party leading the revolution?
Actually, he was quite critical of that idea. He argued that it would inevitably lead to the establishment of a new form of tyranny.
So no revolutionary elite to guide the masses.
No. He believed the people themselves must be the architects of their own liberation, that true freedom can't be bestowed from above.
So revolution for Malatesta wasn't about imposing a predetermined blueprint on society, but about creating the conditions for people to freely determine their own destiny.
You got it. It's about empowering the masses, giving them the tools and the confidence to build a better world for themselves.
And how did he envision the role of organizations in this revolutionary struggle, given his emphasis on direct action and popular participation?
He saw organizations as essential for coordinating action and promoting anarchist ideas, but he was also wary of the dangers of bureaucratization and hierarchy.
So organizations are necessary, but they need to be carefully structured and constantly evaluated to make sure they're serving the people and not becoming tools of domination.
Exactly. He argued that anarchist organizations should be decentralized and non-hierarchical, reflecting the principles they sought to promote in society.
They should be a microcosm of the world they're trying to create.
Precisely. He stressed the importance of maintaining a grassroots approach, ensuring that organizations remained accountable to their members and responsive to the needs of the people. He also emphasized the need for organizations to be constantly evolving and adapting to changing circumstances.
So no rigid structures or dogma. It's about being flexible and responsive to the ever-changing dynamics of the struggle.
Yes, and he was a strong advocate for direct action. He believed that people should take matters into their own hands rather than relying on authorities to solve their problems.
He saw direct action as a way for people to empower themselves, build solidarity, and create change from the bottom up.
Yeah.
What are some examples of direct action that he supported?
He believed in the power of collective action, whether it's workers going on strike, communities organizing to protect their environment, or individuals engaging in acts of civil disobedience.
It's about reclaiming our agency, refusing to be passive bystanders in the face of injustice, and recognizing our collective power to create a better world. I want to touch on one more aspect of Malatesta's work, his internationalism.
He was a passionate advocate for international solidarity, believing that the struggle for liberation transcended national borders. He condemned nationalism and patriotism as tools for dividing the working class and perpetuating the rule of the elite.
He saw the working class as a global force united by their shared exploitation and their common aspiration for a better world. He truly believed in a world without borders.
Absolutely. He argued that true solidarity required recognizing our shared humanity and working together to overcome the artificial barriers that separate us.
Malatesta's internationalism is a powerful reminder that our struggles are interconnected, that we are all part of a global movement for justice and liberation. His vision of a world where people are free to move, work, and live without fear of persecution or discrimination is a potent antidote to the rising tide of xenophobia and nationalism we see in the world today.
It's a vision worth fighting for. Yeah, it really is a powerful vision, especially relevant in our increasingly interconnected world. It's remarkable how Malatesta saw the potential for global solidarity long before globalization became like a buzzword.
He was ahead of his time in so many ways.
Right.
And it wasn't just theoretical for him. We see he was actively involved in anarchist movements all over the world, constantly organizing, agitating, and pushing for radical change. He lived a life of action, facing imprisonment and exile, time and again, for his unwavering commitment to his ideals.
Yeah, yet even in the face of adversity, he never lost sight of the human side of revolution.
That's what makes him so compelling. He understood that revolution wasn't just about abstract ideas, it was about people's lives. He was deeply compassionate, always striving to create a world where everyone could thrive.
You know, it's striking how even some of the Italian authorities who imprisoned him expressed admiration for Malatesta's character.
Yeah, it really shows the power of living in accordance with your convictions. He earned respect even from his adversaries. Now let's turn our attention to one of the more controversial aspects of Malatesta's thought,
Yeah.
his views on organization. He rejected the hierarchical structures that dominate most societies, advocating instead for a more decentralized, non-hierarchical approach.
He recognized that organization was necessary to effectively challenge the established order, but he was adamant that anarchist organizations should embody the very principles they were fighting for: freedom, equality, and mutual aid.
So how did he envision these organizations functioning without falling into the traps of bureaucracy and domination?
He advocated for decentralized, non-hierarchical structures based on voluntary association and direct democracy. He believed in empowering individuals, giving them a direct say in the decisions that affected their lives.
So a system where everyone has a voice and a stake in the outcome, rather than a top-down structure where a few dictate to the many.
Exactly. He was also wary of the tendency for organizations to become ends in themselves rather than means to an end. He emphasized that the ultimate goal was the liberation of society as a whole, not the perpetuation of any particular organization.
It's a good reminder that organizations should be constantly evaluated to make sure they're still serving the needs of the people and staying true to their original purpose. It's a dynamic process that requires constant vigilance.
Absolutely. He believed that organizations should be fluid and responsive, evolving as the situation demands. He was critical of rigid dogma and insisted that anarchist principles should be applied creatively, taking into account the specific context.
So no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about being adaptable and finding what works best in each unique situation.
Right. And remember, he was a strong advocate for direct action. He believed that people should take matters into their own hands rather than relying on authorities to solve their problems.
It's about reclaiming our agency and recognizing our collective power to create a better world.
And as we conclude this deep dive into the life and ideas of Errico Malatesta, I hope you'll take this with you. His legacy extends far beyond the pages of anarchist history. His ideas are alive and well-inspiring countless individuals and movements around the globe.
He showed us that another world is possible, a world where power rests with the people, where cooperation replaces competition, and where human dignity is paramount.
His life and work are a call to action, an invitation to join the struggle for a better future where we are all free.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep fighting for the world you want to see. And never forget the words of Errico Malatesta: we are the children of the revolution, and to the revolution we will return.